Hello again. This is episode 2. This is Brendan Ferguson, designer.
This is Chuck Jordan, writer.
This is Heather Logus, designer.
Dave Bogan, art director.
And Dave Grossman, shameless layabout.
We made pretty good time coming back from the North Pole, eh, Max?
So at the beginning of the season, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out kind of what sort of themes we wanted for the season. And we kind of honed in on things based out of mythology or just there is sort of a theme when you connect them all together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're often talking about kind of overall what could it be about, and that just seems to be something that Sam and Max are always getting involved in, sort of mythical creatures and stuff like that. We ended up not per se really stressing that this is a connection between all the different things, letting it be a little bit more organic than saying, okay, this episode is going to be this mythical character, but it didn't end up being sort of a loose connection between many of the episodes.
I do remember right at the beginning of the season planning that you, Brendan, said you just wanted to go to a bunch of exotic locations, and we kind of made a list. And there was Easter Island, there was the North Pole, and Mount Olympus was on it. We didn't get to that one.
Right,
maybe later.
Do you want to talk about the triangle, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Is there anything you want me to talk about the triangle?
No.
Goes
It's a
from one
pretty
place
cool
to the next.
triangle, huh?
Okay, you say.
Three corners.
Nothing interesting about
You
that.
got that from that Portal game, right?
The what?
You got that from the Portal
that
game.
portal.
Oh,
Well,
That's what it was based on.
that game, which I haven't played.
The Easter Island thing actually was we had really just talked about sort of tropical islands and tiki bars and that kind of theme. And I wasn't completely sold on Easter Island per se, but then when we thought about the stone heads and Abe Lincoln falling in love or getting the hots for some stone head, it just seemed to be, okay, well, it's coming together, we got to go there now. So
And we tried really hard to combine as many mythological concepts in one
yeah,
episode as we could with Easter Island and the Bermuda Triangle and Atlantis. I feel like there was one we were trying to push for that didn't make it, but I don't recall.
I don't know. I do, when I was a kid, I really loved all the tales of the paranormal and stuff like that. And so all these kind of lost, all these people who were lost and that sort of thing, those were always things of interest to me and things like the Fountain of Youth. So we just decided to try to get them all in one episode.
I was just glad we finally got some tiki culture.
Yeah.
I was just glad that I believe that that's the longest fart joke in video game history.
Oh, I don't know. No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're right.
I want to get an official ruling on that, but for now, I'm saying that
Somebody called you.
it stands. The record stands.
And you did the recording of that yourself, am I right?
It was the
Yes.
smelliest part joke.
That was the best take of the 5 that I did for them.
All in a row. By the 5th, you were definitely.
That was a long day.
I guess I can say something about the triangle. I think the designers were challenging the artists to design new portals and trying to make them absolutely harder each time a different kind of portal showed up. So now they are moving and we're throwing things in and out of them. And
Now I
doing
can
all
move in
kinds of
3
crazy
dimensions
things.
while spinning.
Spinning, moving,
There's another case solved.
talking.
I do remember that we wanted to. The portal originally, the colors on the inside of it were inverted, and I think it did look nicer that way. Unfortunately, one of the puzzles depends on you remembering this is the red triangle because you had to make a connection between a red gong and a red triangle. So we really wanted to redify that thing.
I really think that the puzzles in this around the triangles and the portals were all very, very clever. If a bit. Well, I don't know.
Hitting the
I
same
don't know
point
that I
again,
would have
yeah.
figured. Honestly, I don't know how many of these I would have figured out on my own.
I also want to give props to Jake Rodkin for coming up with these really cool openings.
Yeah,
Each one has a different title card and kind of.
they are good.
Yeah, I kept trying to
matches
get a big in search of influence
Exactly.
for the title card here because it has Moai heads and Amelia Earhart. And I started explaining it to people, and they had no idea what it was, and I felt really old.
I still don't. What are you talking about?
I totally know.
big baby.
Well, since we're giving props and I just saw the credits, Randy Tudor, does he ever come in on any of these discussion sessions? But I love that guy. I just want to
Amazing.
say every time that I can how awesome Randy is. because
Randy is really,
He
really
is
awesome.
the guy that just makes this game happen. Anytime you fans at home want to thank somebody, you should thank Randy because seriously, he is an amazing person.
He makes order out of chaos and functionality.
Yeah, it's
Out
just
of
he just
nothing.
figures out how to make everything happen.
And he rides a Harley.
Yeah, he's a cool guy.
And you don't realize how much he does until he's not doing it.
Randy,
often.
Randy is very magical and secretive, and things fall apart when he disappears.
Yes.
Great chance.
Which is why we try to chain him to his desk and not let him go anywhere.
Alone.
Ah, finally.
He ever been on
someone has come to
vacation?
rescue us.
Yes,
Yes,
short
but-
periods.
I remember I was freelancing. I was remembering how it seemed like I would just be sitting at home writing jokes, and I would send them in somebody, and then it would this game would get made. And then when I started working here, it was kind of the same thing. You just write jokes and then send it off to Randy, and this game gets
Say
made.
is going to happen.
I love the grumpy Moai. He's on my business card.
Isn't there a story behind the Grumpy Moai?
It's Dave.
Well,
I think there is a story.
I do remember that Brian had designed this environment. It was very, very well done, and he just thought it would look nice if it was buried. Or was that you?
I don't remember.
I remember you guys had been talking it over and just thought that wanted to be buried, and then we realized, oh yeah, that's actually going to make this much funnier
What does that mean?
to have this guy never say anything intelligible. So that was a good example of serendipity and humor.
Goodbye, or
I think it was so his feet would be further down.
We're not.
Right.
When you got down there.
Oh no, you're right. You're right.
Wasn't there another story about one of the other Moai heads?
The grumpy one.
The other guy who ends up
Well,
smoking
we
basalt
made one
or
of them
something?
female, but made no distinguishing characteristic of it.
It had to be female.
I thought I had to do something with a surly forum member or something.
Oh no, it's just your general
Haven't seen you
stick
around
up the butt type attitude towards what you guys think you're supposed to be funny.
They're more frightened of
Right.
We just wanted them to be to have their own personalities, to each be distinct from each other, and that their personalities would sort of dictate how you dealt with them and how you were able to solve the puzzles. I don't think it was directly linked to any forum members. Although I'm sure we could do it retroactively if we wanted to think
No,
about
no,
it.
there was no intentional anything where we were trying to be like somebody. I do remember when we were first thinking of those characters that I remember thinking of them like the Three Stooges, or they're three guys that are always fighting, or they're always upset about something. And then later, since we did have the idea for episode 4 to have these guys that would crush people's spirits, that they would all be downcast in different ways. One would be the doom kind of person. One would be just the I'm really uptight, and then one would just be constantly storming. And so we wanted to tie those things together with their abilities some way, like each one has the power of lightning or whatever. Ended up not really being that closely related, except maybe the lightning guy, but they did end up at least being distinct. Enough that you can remember.
I think we should have snuck in a little Dave Grossman figurine on the Tiki Bar, seeing as if you walk to his desk, he's got tiki trinkets all over the place. It would have been a nice mix.
I did like that we managed to get Glenn Miller actually saying "Baby Limburg Baby" out loud, because
That was
that
always
was my
really
favorite character name, but nobody actually called him Baby Limburg Baby.
Composed by our resident musical maestro.
Oh, and somebody I read somewhere online was very offended that we were making light of the
It is not for sale.
Limburg Baby incident.
Again, we offended people.
Yeah, I
Again.
think it was just too soon.
I started collecting the letters that we get from people, because every episode we
about this new
offend
game you're
somebody
working
with
on.
something.
Well, I send most of those letters, and what can I say? I just thought that was in poor taste.
Thank you.
A music-based video game.
Yeah, this whole driving over bagpipes thing, I can't remember why. I remember during season 1 just mentioning that randomly
I don't like
for something, and then we finally managed to put it in here. It ended up being the theme for the season that every game seems like some classic arcade game in some way, except for some reason you do it by driving.
Does not compute. You
Um,
are saying that
but this one I
music
actually
games
thought turned out pretty well.
already exist?
How do we play
And
this
the angry letters that we got from bagpipe players all over the
Yeah.
world are not.
I would never leave my bagpipe in the street. Are you crazy? Especially near an accordion. Those jerks.
Don't we have to destroy the
Was
bad
this the
guys?
last
you might
episode
leave someone
that
else's bagpipe
Jared
on the street.
was able to do the Bluster Blaster?
Yeah, that's true. For the recording for this, well, we did recording for episode 1 and 2 at the same time, and he did all of Bluster's lines all in a row, and he was about to pass out from doing it. He was straining so hard to scream these lines, and so he politely emailed me and said, "Is there any way we can change his character? And here are some ideas to how we could do it." So he did my work for me.
Ready, go!
So this game was programmed by John Drake, and he had the idea of making it so that at the harder levels, the accordions will automatically be placed near the bagpipe, so that you would have to quickly swerve. It was Jared's idea to put this song here. Actually, I think this is probably his best work. This da 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 da. I mean, that's just instant classic.
Very catchy.
Hey, wow, who's playing that so good? And we're going to apparently hear the whole thing, including
The screeching
Someone's in the
tires
kitchen with
add a nice
Dinah.
note to the sound.
and then one quick newspaper breaking.
Wow, it sounds really good when you get them all in a row.
Yeah, it's nice that you can still hit all the stuff on the sidewalks too while you're playing this game.
No one can resist the jumps.
It's very difficult to resist
I don't know
the jumps.
how is this song known outside of the United States? I mean, one of our goals here was that, unlike in a game like Guitar Hero, you are not, you don't have a chance to hear the song play in any capacity. And so the hope was that you would recognize it as you were playing it. So we were thinking, what would be a song well enough known? And then the Working on the Railroad was obviously related to what you were talking about with Glenn Miller, so that was a good choice. But I didn't know if anybody else outside the U.S.
It's kind of an American classic.
Yeah, that's.
Canadians know about it.
Well, I mean, if you live in the United
American
States, I
Canadian
think. I mean, with somebody in Poland, though, would say Roman Polanski.
Or like
recognizes it.
Bless. Like Bless would know. I don't think
Like-
Roman Polanski would.
Oh, I think Roman would.
Talk to my agent.
Speaking of obscure characters, it was fun to try to figure out who to put in here for the missing people that were reverted to babies.
Yeah, Jimmy Hoffa seemed really clear.
Jimmy
Jimmy
Hoffa,
Hoffa
Amelia
was
Earhart
Amelia
were just
Earhart.
completely obvious.
Glenn Miller was.
Glenn Miller,
Who?
I happened to
What?
know that Glenn
Missing.
Miller was missing. I didn't think he was that obscure of a character.
I didn't think he
No,
was that
he's-
obscure
No,
either.
just the
He's
fact
definitely
that-
not.
the
It's
fact
just that
he's
he's missing. I thought that was.
I didn't
not
think that
as
was
widely
obscure
known.
either.
That's why the only reason. He's the only one that they mentioned. Wait, we didn't know you were a missing person.
Right,
I thought
right.
you were dead.
But yeah, it's hard for me to tell because I love big band music, so I decided Glenn Miller. He's very well.
I think giving him Jimmy Stewart's voice was a nice touch.
Yeah.
There's another fantastic character design. The ocean chimps.
Mighty Kamehameha doing donuts in a
That was the thing I think I got most excited about for this episode was
It was more of a
putting sea
tribute.
monkeys
really.
in there because I wanted sea monkeys, and then I had the sea monkeys on my desk that Dave Bogan murdered, and
Viciously.
As
viciously
I think that was
murdered.
involuntary manslaughter.
We all
he didn't
assume
mean
that they're
to.
dead, but I think
I
they
think
were
it
still
was
living in
totally
that carpet in
premeditated.
Pelham and
I
Anderson.
guess it would be
Poor
sea monkey
Dave.
slaughter.
Dave felt very bad.
I murdered them, so
So
I had
he
to
had to put
recreate
the-
them in virtual reality
Yes,
for Heather for all time.
and now I forgive him.
He does have feet.
Although I still miss Harold.
Dog speaks the truth.
He's in a better place now.
We ancient civilization that worship
Remember
Really, whatever you want.
who speak
learning
to
many,
us
many
in
years ago
voices
that the
high
Easter
priest.
Island heads,
We're
many of them were
not
actually
gullible.
full-bodied figures
He
that,
quite one
that had just been
without
buried
truly
up to
Right.
their necks. And I love this
He
approach that we
proved
took
it
with
by
this, where
fulfilling
there was
the
another
ancient
society
prophecy.
living underneath the island that was worshipping the feet.
Yeah.
It's just really fun somehow.
Ancient traditions. Maybe he really
These
is.
guys are some amazing combination of monkey and seahorse
And squid
and squid.
And Jamaicans.
or octopus or something.
May you, my you. Oh, mighty
We did
feet.
spend a little time thinking about what jobs these guys were going to have in relation to the feet. I remember there was going to be like they were going to be working on the cuticles and
Right.
You worship feet?
sanding the calluses off.
Feet that
Well, then we ended up making a puzzle where you could not reach the feet easily, so we had to lose that.
this is probably an example of the best looking kind of effects that we had been able to pull off to date.
Yeah.
We've done some others in the later episodes, but this is probably the first example of where we started to stretch
Yeah,
out
Marco
as
always
far as
outdoes
effects.
himself.
And this is a Marcoism. This nice glowy underwater effect we're seeing here.
Yeah, Marco Brezzo, he's FX wizard.
I mean, it's so good. I don't even think about that as effect. I just think I am underwater while I'm playing.
Yeah.
That's why I called it out.
There's also, we don't get to play with the effects on, so we, for the longest time, it was just like walking around, and you had to get reminded that they were underwater.
For years to find out.
Oh, I didn't want to talk over that. That was the Lost reference.
You did.
You talked.
I didn't want to.
Now it's lost.
It's
That's
lost.
gone forever. Just wanted to say that I had nothing to do with that. I'm a big Lost fan, but
Ever since those heads started talking, you haven't
I
heard
opened up
one
the
word
scene
I've
one
said.
time to find the hatch with the numbers on it. It was,
Oh, I mean,
did a little giddy
they
squeal
call?
and dance, and then
I hadn't noticed.
waited for the music to come in from
For
Jared.
our next
Oh, is that why you were
vacation.
squealing?
Sybil, I mean, Sybil,
That's probably my favorite
thought about getting
reference in the game is the musical.
I was thinking,
He does a
you had your
little
nose
musical
stretched out, so
nod
maybe
to the
squared
Lost
off the
theme
head a little.
whenever they find something mysterious.
Not that you don't look nice now, of course.
That is it.
I love the fact that Lincoln's head is attracted to the Moai heads.
Come on.
I don't know why.
Man, I'm not made of stone. You know what I mean.
This was a really fun character arc to plan out, was the relationship between Lincoln and Sybil, which actually, I think this was the thing most solid in our, well, at least in my mind, when we started doing season 2, because it had come up in season 1, towards the end of designing season 1, that we were just going to keep them around and wind up marrying them at the end of season 2.
Right. So right at the end of season 1, they just had started their romance. So we thought, here's a chance to see some. What would a typical romance movie
Poor
arc
Sybil.
be?
And this bit of it I really like, especially because it's a use of characters, and they're there in the environment, and you can talk to them, you're interested in what's going on with them, but it actually has nothing to do with the puzzles in the game or anything. So
Yeah, it's interesting how people react to that. Some people really want every character to have I need to interact with them in order to progress in the game. I actually do kind of prefer that it doesn't feel like every character is merely a key to some puzzle, but rather sometimes characters are just hanging around. But each his or her own.
Did John Scrow push for having the Sam and Max kids in this game at all?
Way back in season 1, I was asking everybody what they most liked about Sam and Max, what they wanted. He said the kids. We never could get them into season 1, but I remembered him as in memoriam of John Scrow, even though of course he's still alive.
And still here.
I just think of him as dead because I don't talk to him. He's dead to me.
Got to get up there and stop that volcano.
We still get to kill them now, yeah?
John's another guy in the studio who kind of keeps everything together.
Absolutely.
He keeps the path from art into the engine really clean, and we're able to get into the engine and provide all the visuals really easily.
Yeah, what gives, Mr. Spatula?
He's a magician.
Pals.
He say pals?
This is all inspired by
Then he
Bioshock.
spit derisively.
That was ironic, everyone.
A year before it came out.
Here's another one where when we planned this one, we said, okay, there's some sort of really tall kind of altar or something that Mr. Spatula is on. You just can't get up there, and there's just no clear way. But once you become awarded high priest, a staircase appears or anything. I don't really care what happens. There's just some way to get up there. And then Kim Lyons, who designed this environment, had this great idea for this encased bubble conveyor pod. And we said, oh, okay, well, if we're going to make this, how is this going to work? And so based on that design of the environment, we said, okay, well, we'll make the joke that it just moves very, very slowly.
That doesn't sound so bad.
They just keep talking and talking here.
Yeah, we wanted to be the clunkiest Bondian evil villain. I'm telling you the entire plan possible. So not only is it a fish saying it, but he's having to be translated by a stupid person, basically. And it just goes on and on and on and on.
In my spectral form, I am invincible. Aha, aha, ha, ha.
And it keeps going.
I suppose we can and this bit of anticlimax. I'd always wanted to have some kind of, at some point there would be an anticlimactic end to something like this. That just seemed very Sam and Maxie. There's that one comic where they just step on a bug or something to end the thing. It's hard because you do want the end of the episode to feel very big and exciting. And so this one, it seemed like it could work because of the whole, now there's a volcano erupting. It didn't quite work out, but that was the hope. I suppose it's okay now to talk about the fact that originally we had talked about having the idea that Mr. Spatula would become the character of Max Salmon from the comics. And Steve nixed that idea. He didn't want that Max Salmon's origin story to be spilled in that fashion. He wanted to keep that a mystery. So we decided to leave it as just good old Mr. Spatula.
Oh, the good old sock crown.
Yeah. So we still don't know how Max Salmon came to be.
Which is probably good.
He won't tell us either.
Eucharist on a nitro-burning catamaran.
That's the second biggest Bermuda Triangle I've ever seen.
Seems to be spinning out of control, too.
How many times can we actually use that joke? Or, I mean,
Get Smart
games.
references never get old.
Yeah, there's a good,
I fail to see how this is helpful.
there's a good
in an
read on there.
emergency.
So yeah, this is another one where I'm just asking John Scrotus to do some amazing stuff. We just said, and then there's a mega triangle, and it is just spitting out all kinds of crazy stuff. It's just the most intense vortex of doom, and it's very hard to have all these objects created and flying out, but he managed to pull it off with cars flying through there.
I don't care.
So this is another good example of how the portals were escalating. How cars and trees and plants are flying out of the portal while it's
Lava
rotating and moving, and then giant spouts of lava get spat into it, and, which gets nicely tied up in the last episode, I believe.
Well, for that
Dave
volcano,
Logan never wants to see another portal again.
No more
Yeah.
portals.
Your loss. Can I get a ride with you guys? Our portal back home is gone.
for the volcano, we had to make it seem like if it erupts, it's going to hit them, so we had to tilt the top to point towards the Moai. But then later in episode 4, we needed to make it so that you could bottle it up with a cork. So we were kind of undecided on exactly what the shape of that thing should be.
Just sit here for another few thousand years.
That sucks.
And then,
Except
okay,
they
yeah,
don't.
they do. And so this episode, we knew we wanted to end it with there's some mysterious thing drawing you into the next episode. The music here really makes it seem like this is heavenly. Just completely throwing you off, but a little foreshadowing. Bye-bye.